scientists have investigated this ancient herb for everything from severe hormonal imbalances to protecting the brain from irreversible damage. I mean, while it's totally famous around the world as a natural remedy for stress, modern laboratories are uncovering something way more profound. They're actually finding a microscopic biochemical factory inside its roots and leaves that may finally explain centuries of traditional use. So, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the therapeutic reality of Withania somnifera, better known as ashwagandha, stripping away the folklore and looking strictly at the clinical facts.
So, what exactly happens when 3,000 years of ancient medicine meets modern microscopes? Well, that's exactly the question researchers have been asking. Historically, this plant was an absolute cornerstone of Ayurveda. Traditional healers relied on it to treat everything from debility to nervous exhaustion. But, what happens when you put those ancient claims under high-tech modern microscopes? We're going to bridge the gap between historical belief and today's rigorous cellular research. We're separating fact from fiction by looking at exactly how the compounds hidden inside this plant interact with our body's incredibly complex biological systems.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our systems blueprint for today. First, we'll meet the Indian ginseng, then neuroprotection and brain health. Next up, targeting cancer and tumors, followed by stress and immune defense. After that, we'll look at reproductive and sexual health, and finally, the clinical verdict. All right, Section 1, meet the Indian ginseng, plant profile and biochemistry.
To really understand these benefits, we first need to meet the plant. Botanically, Withania somnifera belongs to the Solanaceae family. You probably know it as the nightshade family. And you definitely know it by its common name, ashwagandha or Indian ginseng. Now, in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, it's classified as a rasiana, which is basically a group of plant-derived remedies reputed to promote physical and mental health. But modern science, they don't just take rejuvenation at face value. They look for the molecules making it happen, because the magic isn't actually magic at all. It's chemistry. So the crucial point is that the primary bioactive molecules in this plant are called withanolides. These are complex, naturally occurring steroidal lactones, like witheprin A. They're built on an ergostane framework with multiple sites of unsaturation. And why does that matter to us? Well, their unique shape and high reactivity allow them to bind directly to specific receptors and enzymes in our bodies. They are the literal microscopic molecules responsible for the medical effects we're about to explore.
Moving on to Section 2, neuroprotection and brain health, shielding the nervous system. Neurodegenerative diseases often cause irreversible destruction to the central nervous system, right? And effective medications are, unfortunately, severely lacking right now. But this is where we see the precise neurochemical pathways that modern science has proven, moving far beyond traditional beliefs. For instance, in Alzheimer's models, the plant's compounds actually regulate NCX3. That's a specific calcium exchanger, and regulating it normalizes calcium fluxes and helps reduce those toxic amyloid beta plaques. Pretty amazing. In Parkinson's models, it actively quenches free radicals and reverses injury to the dopamine-producing neurons. And perhaps most fascinating, computational studies show that specific phytochemicals from the plant, like chlorogenic acid, literally dock into and inhibit the gluN1, gluN2B, and MDA receptors. These receptors are major culprits in nerve cell death or excitotoxicity. So the plant is essentially preventing the brain cells from being overstimulated to death. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact of those microscopic pathways. Just think about sleep deprivation for a second. When you're sleep deprived, your brain undergoes severe oxidative stress. Lipid peroxidation spikes, and your feel-good neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, just totally plummet. But when researchers introduce Withania into the mix, it completely shifts the landscape. It restores those neurotransmitter concentrations, stops the free radical production in its tracks, and dramatically increases your brain's natural antioxidant enzymes, stuff like catalase and superoxide dismutase. It's essentially forcing the brain back into chemical homeostasis. Okay, Section 3, targeting cancer and tumors, oncology research. Now, I want to be absolutely clear here. We're looking at experimental in vitro cell cultures and in vivo animal models right now, not clinical cures for human cancer. But the data on how this plant interacts with tumor cells is honestly staggering. Systematically looking at the evidence, in liver cancer cells, the extract literally induces apoptosis. That means it programs the cancer cells to destroy themselves, and it arrests their growth cycle. In oral squamous cell carcinoma, specific fractions of the root target major oncogenic proteins, known as BRD3 and CDK2, to exert cytotoxicity. And in vivo models of solid tumors, it actually decreases the cancer's mitochondrial enzymes and acts as a potent radiosensitizer, meaning it makes the tumor much more vulnerable to radiation therapy. The innovation in this field is moving incredibly fast. Researchers aren't even just using the plant extract anymore, they're isolating fungi that live inside the plant. These fungi produce compounds that strongly inhibit aggressive brain tumors, like glioblastoma. They're even creating advanced Withania nanocomposites using gadolinium. When they combine this nanocomposite with low-dose gamma radiation in mice, they saw a massive decrease in tumor size and weight. The really exciting takeaway here is the potential to reduce the radiation doses patients are exposed to during conventional radiotherapy, using the herb to make those lower doses highly effective.
Let's move on to Section 4, Stress and Immune Defense, the adaptogenic effect. So, ashwagandha is incredibly famous for its stress relief reputation, right? But we really need to frame that in hard clinical terms. What is an adaptogen actually doing to your immune system? Well, think of this as a macro to micro metaphor. The macroscopic feeling of stress, or the systemic wear and tear of aging, which researchers call inflammaging, is driven by elevated cortisol, overactive immune responses, and inflammatory cytokines just flooding your system. But the withanolides, specifically withafrin A, act as a microscopic pathway blockade. They physically inhibit transcription factors like NF-kappa B and AP1 from entering the cell nucleus. And if they can't enter the nucleus, they can't trigger the inflammation. You literally feel less stressed because the actual chemical cascades of stress have been halted at the cellular level.
I actually want to read this direct quote from a 2007 study because of its profound implications. It says, the extract inhibited nuclear translocation of the transcription factors NF-kappa B and AP1 in normal and rheumatoid arthritis patients' mononuclear cells. What makes this so incredible is that this was directly observed in human peripheral blood and synovial fluid. It provides definitive mechanistic evidence that the plant suppresses the production of pro-inflammatory molecules. That offers immense potential for treating severe inflammatory diseases like rheumatoid arthritis.
Section 5, Reproductive and Sexual Health, Clinical Human Trials. Now, what's really interesting about this next piece of evidence is the sheer strength of the human clinical data. We are moving from petri dishes and animal models directly into robust human outcomes regarding reproductive and sexual health. 167%. That is a massive data point from an evidence-based systematic review and meta-analysis. It represents the average increase in sperm concentration for oligospermic males, that's men with low sperm counts, after just 90 days of treatment with Withania somnifera.
And it doesn't just boost one single metric. It holistically regulates the entire endocrine profile. In infertile men, serum testosterone increased by 17%, luteinizing hormone jumped by 34%, and semen volume and motility increased by almost 60%. At the exact same time, it significantly reduced out-of-balance hormones like prolactin and actually recovered vital antioxidant vitamins like A, C, and E directly in the seminal plasma. So by reducing oxidative stress and correcting hormonal balance at the same time, the studied groups achieved a remarkable 14% pregnancy success rate. Let's move to the next set of data and see how this builds, because these reproductive benefits extend powerfully into female health and vitality too. In an 8-week, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial looking at healthy women with hypoactive sexual desire disorder, the results were striking. The female sexual function index scores improved drastically, going from 14.20 up to 22.62. The researchers recorded statistically significant improvements across the board: desire, arousal, lubrication, and orgasm, leading to an increased frequency of satisfying sexual encounters. And the best part? It achieved this adaptogenically, maintaining general well-being without artificially disrupting the body's natural hormonal balance.
And finally, Section 6, the clinical verdict, summary of evidence.
Okay, we've covered a massive amount of dense scientific data today, spanning multiple bodily systems. So it's time to synthesize everything into our core takeaways. Recapping the 4 pillars of our system's blueprint.
For neuroprotection, we know it physically regulates calcium fluxes and blocks the receptors responsible for brain cell death. In cellular health and oncology, it induces programmed cell death in tumor models and acts as a powerful radiosensitizer. For stress and systemic inflammation, it operates as a true adaptogen by blocking the NF-kappa B inflammatory pathways right at the nuclear level. And for reproductive health, the human clinical trials show massive enhancements in both male semen parameters and female sexual function scores.
What we're ultimately looking at here is not just an old root. Withania somnifera offers a vast microscopic chemical reservoir. These natural steroidal lactones, particularly molecules like withifrin A, are capable of modulating incredibly complex human biological systems. They hold massive, proven potential in treating the systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, and chronic diseases that plague modern society. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. We now have the microscopes and the molecular docking software to see exactly how these 3,000-year-old remedies work. So as we continue to uncover the exact cellular receptors this ancient root targets, what does the future of pharmaceutical drug development look like when it's guided by botanical medicine? The answers might just be waiting in the leaves and roots of the Indian ginseng. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it sparked your curiosity to learn even more.